I walked into a 10-minute closing. Toner in the air, lemon cleaner on the table, cameras in the ceiling. A manila folder waited with my name on it. Inside, deeds, wires, a future I didn't choose. My daughter smiled like this was kindness. Her husband's hand rested on my arm, light for the camera, heavy for my skin. Just a signature, they said. Emergency access, family only. I slid an old library card across the table like it was nothing. On the back, in neat block letters I learned to write on overdue notices, I've written, "Help, not voluntary. Please ask if I am alone." The escrow officer's pen didn't move. Her face didn't change. She stood, gentle as a lullaby. 2 minutes in private, Miss Brooks. Door closed. Lock clicked. Plant in the corner. Box of tissues. Calm voice. Do you want security or your bank manager first? Both, I said. We called the bank. We raised a blue flag, their code for verify with the owner only. We opened the folder. Not protection, a plan. Joint title now, not later. Sloppy power of attorney, a wire, masked numbers I didn't know. Then we're done, the supervisor said. Closing canceled. Security took position in the hall. My banker came on speaker. My daughter called me unreasonable. My voice didn't shake when I answered. People think love means signing whatever keeps the peace. Today, love means a locked side room, a steady pin, and one small card that says, help. 10 minutes from now, the papers will be nothing. But the note, that note will save my name. Just a signature, my daughter says, like she's offering me a napkin instead of my life. The closing room smells like toner and lemon cleaner. And the blinds make that soft plastic clatter when the air conditioner kicks on. A manila folder with my name sits in front of me. I can see my reflection in its glossy tab, gray hair tucked back, lipstick that doesn't disguise the tremble in my mouth. Derek is on my right. He leans in with his elbow touching 9 like we're buddies sharing a secret. His fingers settle on my forearm and stay there, light enough to look like help on the cameras in the ceiling, heavy enough that my skin knows it isn't it. We'll be out of here in 10 minutes, Evelyn, he says without moving his lips much. Sedona by sunset. Sophie will be so excited. Maya's perfume arrives before her words do. Expensive, a little too sweet. She plants a smile on the escrow officer that says, I'm the reasonable one here. My mom just wants to add us to title for emergencies. You know how it is. The escrow officer introduces herself as Priya. She has a capped pen in her hand and a calm face I can almost trust. I slide a card from my purse, the old library card I never turned in when I retired, and I push it forward like I'm adjusting my ID. On the back, in small block letters, I learned to write on overdue notices. I've written, help, not voluntary. Please ask if I am alone. Her eyes touch the card and then my face. Nothing moves in her expression. Her pen stays capped. She stands with a smooth motion that doesn't alarm anyone. Ms. Brooks, you're the owner of record. Before we begin, I need to verify a few items with you privately. It will take 2 minutes. Maya laughs too brightly. Oh, that's okay. We're all family.
Priya's smile doesn't change. It's our procedure on owner-occupied properties. I'll bring her right back. Derek's fingers tighten. He keeps smiling. He keeps smiling like the cameras haven't noticed anything for anyone, ever. I breathe and nod and try to make my legs remember how to stand. The hallway hums with printers, with old air. Priya leads me into a small room. There's a plant near the window that looks like it forgot to drink for a week. She closes the door with care and turns the lock. Then she sets a box of tissues on the table between us and places my card like it's something sacred. "Do you want me to call security?" she asks, voice low and steady. "Or would you like me to call your bank manager first?" I didn't know crying could feel like relief. I nod. "Both," I say. "Please." Her hand doesn't touch me. She pours water into a paper cup and slides it across. "We're going to pause this closing," she says. "I'll bring in my supervisor. We'll document that you requested a blue flag. That means we verify you're making a free and informed decision. No one else speaks for you." I wipe my face. The tissue scratches like school paper. "Thank you," I say, and my voice is small and very old. They said it was for emergencies. They say a lot. Priya's eyes stay on mine while she presses a button on a small intercom. "We'll handle this," she says. And then she is gone. I look up at the TV screen in the corner, black glass showing me back to myself. I look like a mother. Even at 70, I look like someone who would make her hands into a bowl and hold somebody else's spill without letting a drop hit the floor. Out in the hall, a door opens and closes. The plant in the corner catches a ring of light and looks brave for a second. Priya returns with a woman who holds a clipboard like a promise. "I'm Dana. I'm the branch supervisor. You did the right thing bringing this to us." Her voice would be a good voice to hear during a thunderstorm. "I should have done it sooner," I say. "Sooner is before never. That's on time in my book." She glances at the card. "We're going to move your family to another room and let them know we're delayed for a compliance review. You and Miss Patel and I will go through this file together. If you want to stop at any point, say stop. We'll call your bank manager now and let the office know to alert security to be nearby." "Please," I say again. It's becoming a new kind of prayer. In the small room, the clock ticks. I think about the clock in the hospice room where my husband died last fall, how it ate each hour with the same tidy bite, whether we were ready or not. "Miss Brooks, do you want to begin?" Priya says. I nod. We begin. The first document is a warranty deed. The paper is thick, the legal description long and full of words like tract and easement. Dana highlights a paragraph. "This would remove your sole ownership and create a joint tenancy with right of survivorship. That means they would own your home with you now, not later." "Do you want that?" Priya asks, and she asks it in a way that doesn't lead me toward the answer that would be convenient for anyone else. "No," I say, and it lands like a stone in a calm pond. Ripples move out, bump against my ribs. The next document is a power of attorney drafted by someone whose email address ends in .consulting, not .law. Dana raises an eyebrow. "This would allow someone else to sign for you on financial matters. It's not properly witnessed. It's not from an attorney. It's sloppy."
"I didn't ask for that," I say. "I can see that," she says. We keep going. A transfer on death deed that would move the house without probate. A new bank account application that lists Derek's name as co-owner for household budgeting. A pre-filled wire transfer authorization with my signature line empty and a destination account masked with asterisks and the last 4 digits, 4419. I don't recognize the number. I don't want to. "We're done here," Dana says. "We'll cancel this closing and we'll document why. Would you like us to bring security into the conversation before we inform your daughter and her husband?" I want to leave quietly.
I want to slip down the hall and be a polite ghost, but polite is what got me to this chair. Yes, I say, bring them. Through the door, the murmur becomes a thud. Derek's voice, warm when he's cold, loud when he should be small. I catch words that float up like oil, ridiculous, family matter, unnecessary. Security arrives, 2 men whose presence is a wall, not a threat. Priya leans toward me. We'll put your bank manager on speakerphone if you'd like. Mr. Alvarez, I say, at Valley Cooperative Credit Union. He answers on the second ring and his voice wraps around my name like a wool scarf. Miss Brooks, I remember you. Are you safe? I am now, I say. We set those flags you ask for. Whatever anyone is telling you, nothing happens to your accounts without your private verification. Dana looks to me. Do you want to speak to them or should I? I want to, because I have been quiet for months and it has swallowed me. They move Maya and Derek into a conference room. Security stands with their backs to the glass, not looking at anyone in particular. Priya lined me at bookends. Maya's eyes are already wet. She knows where to find tears faster than most people can locate their keys. Derek sits with his arms splayed across the table, smile pinned on like a clip-on tie. Mom, you're embarrassing yourself. I know. It's about time. Miss Brooks has decided not to proceed, Dana says, her voice official without being cruel. This closing is canceled. We're documenting coercion concerns. She nods to security. We'll ask you to leave the office now. Derek leans forward. This is a private matter. You're overstepping. Not in this building, Dana says. Maya looks at me with her preschool face. It flashes there just for a second. The toddler on my couch who fell asleep twisting my hair around her fingers. Then it's gone. For emergencies, Mom, you're our family. You don't even like managing the bills. I know who you are. And I know what this is. This is so Sophie doesn't end up on the street if something happens to you, Derek says, practiced concern curdling at the edges. Sophie has 2 parents. Neither of them is me. He opens his mouth to argue, finds 2 security guards watching the air over his shoulder, and shuts it with an audible click. Fine, we'll go, he says, standing, but you've made this so much harder than it had to be. You've been making it harder for months, I say, and I say it quietly, which is the only way I can make it sound like the truth and not a fight. They leave in a cluster of paper and perfume. The door swings softly shut. It feels like a lung finally finishing a breath. How do you feel? Priya asked when the hallway is ordinary again. Scared, I say. And it's not the first time I've said it, but it's the first time it feels like it belongs to me. That's how a lot of people describe it, she says. Is this your first situation like this? I ask. No, she says. It won't be my last. I take a long drink of water. It tastes like nothing, which is what safety tastes like after months of flavor I didn't choose. Thank you for reading my note, I say. You wrote it. You did the brave thing. On the way out, Dana gives me 2 copies of a report. One for me, one for my bank. She hands me a small card with her direct line and a bigger one with a list of resources. Adult Protective Services, legal aid, a support group at the community center on Tuesdays, room C. I put them in my purse and steady my legs and go home. When my husband Thomas was alive, he used to say I could carry anything as long as it fit in a tote bag. He was right about many things. He was a man who labeled the backs of photographs and kept receipts in neat envelopes, one for each month of the year, in a basket in his closet. He liked systems. He liked me. He died on a Tuesday in October when the Palo Verde trees in our Phoenix neighborhood were shedding their green bark like secrets. I held his hand while the hospice nurse adjusted the blinds and pretended we weren't counting breaths. The first text from Maya about helping came 3 weeks after the funeral. "Mom, I'll handle your internet bill this month. Just give me your login. It's easier." The second text came with flowers. "There's a better savings account if I'm a joint signer. 4.5% APY. Free money. Let me take care of it. You shouldn't worry." The third message arrived when I didn't answer the second. "Fine, I'll just bring Derek. We'll do it at the branch for emergencies." When she was 8, Maya made her wants sound like advice. "Don't buy the cheap crayons, Mom," she'd say at the store, holding the big box with the built-in sharpener like a trophy. "It teaches compromise." Derek was charming the way polished stones are. Smooth, cold if you hold them long enough, heavier than they look. He had a way of turning a question into your problem. "You don't mind, do you?" And he'd say, and the structure of the sentence would force your no to come out silly. The first time they took me to the credit union, Mr. Alvarez asked me to write a sentence on a pad. "I consent to this change." The pen felt heavier than a pen. Maya squeezed my shoulder and told him I was grieving, and he looked up and looked at me and put his pen down and said, "We don't make grief easier by making permanent changes on a rush. Miss Brooks, would you like flags on your profile? No changes without private verification. It slows things down. It saves people." I nodded so fast my neck felt like gravel. He printed a small sheet that said in block letters, "Do not complete transactions without private owner verification," and he made me sign it. And then he had me write a code phrase only I would know on an index card. I wrote down the name of the first book Thomas ever bought me. It's silly, but in moments like this, silly looks like a foundation. After the canceled closing, the calls started that night and didn't stop for a week. First came pleading, "You're not yourself. We're only trying to help." Then came anger, "You're selfish. You're paranoid. You want us to fail." Then came the sharpest knife wrapped in a soft napkin. "We're worried about memory issues, Mom. You've been so forgetful. Maybe a professional needs to get involved. If you've never had your own child suggest you might be incompetent so she can manage your accounts, I hope you never do. It feels like a door in your chest slamming from the inside." Joyce from next door came by the next morning with a casserole that could feed a church. She sat exactly on the edge of the couch cushion, her purse strap still looped over her shoulder like she might need to run. "Psalm," she said, like she'd seen a thundercloud, not my family. "He walks like the sidewalk owes him rent. You okay?" I said, "Today, maybe." You want me to sit with you while you make calls?" I handed her Dana's report and the card for the support group and the list of numbers that looked like a foreign alphabet. "I want you to be here if I forget how to be myself," I said. She squeezed my hand once and then got up to wash the casserole dish in my sink, like we lived in a world where women always do ordinary things during emergencies to remind the room what normal feels like. I called Mr. Alvarez and he told me to come in. At the branch, he added more layers to my file. New card, new PIN, wire transfers capped unless I stood in the branch with him. He took my photo again for their system in case anyone tried to use an old one. He gave me a brochure on elder financial abuse and waited while I put it into my tote like it was something breakable. When I left, he said, "You can call me, even if it's just to have someone on the phone while you tell them no." At home, I put the flags email from the bank into a paper folder that I labeled with a Sharpie and slid into the kitchen drawer where Thomas used to keep envelopes. I wrote the date on the tab because order makes me feel taller. Then I sat at the table with my phone on silent and stared at the wall until the quiet felt like a coat I could wear without itching.
The texts kept coming. Maya sent a link to a long article about probate and wrote, "See, it's complicated." Derek wrote, "We're the only family you have. Your friends won't wipe your mouth when you're 80. When I didn't answer, they sent a video of Sophie practicing her cartwheel in the living room, her hair falling into her eyes, her small voice in the background saying, "I want Grandma to see." I cried into my dish towel, and then I put the phone face down and walked into the yard and watered the rosemary until I remembered my own name. On Tuesday at 6, I went to the community center because a piece of paper in my purse told me to. There were 12 folding chairs in a circle and a smell of coffee and lemon antiseptic. On the whiteboard, someone had written, "Guilt is not a contract." A woman named Sandra facilitated. She was the kind of person who can keep silence warm for exactly as long as someone needs to find their words. People told their stories. A son with a new truck, a nephew with a poker face and gambling debts, a granddaughter with a fundraiser on her phone every time she wanted a new pair of shoes. When it was my turn, I said, "My daughter called theft a legacy." And the room made a soft noise like a choir that knows the song by heart. Sandra handed out a sheet of sentences. "I need time to think." "No" is a complete sentence. "I won't discuss money with you." "We can try again tomorrow." I took it home and stuck it to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like Arizona. The next morning when Maya called and launched into a lecture about adult guardianships and early warning signs of confusion, I took a breath and said, "I won't discuss money with you." And she hung up so fast the call sound stuck in my ear like a fly. I made coffee and pretended it was victory, and then, halfway through my mug, realized it was. 2 weeks later, a mobile notary texted me out of the blue, "On my way with the paperwork for your power of attorney appointment, 10 minutes out." I texted back, "Wrong number." She called. "Is this Miss Brooks?" she asked, cheerful. "I'm here to notarize a financial POA so your daughter can help with bills." "I didn't schedule that," I said. "Turn around." She hesitated, then sighed, then said, "Thank you for telling me," like she gets paid in gratitude as well as checks. I called Mr. Alvarez. He logged it and asked if he could share the report with their security team. I told him yes, and then I sat in the quiet again and wished the world had a softer seat. That afternoon, I wrote a letter to Sophie. "Sweet girl, adults sometimes make money into a mask. I won't wear it. I love you for free. I hope you love people for free too." I drew a small rosemary sprig at the bottom because I once read that rosemary is for remembrance, and I want her to remember me as something other than a wallet with a hand attached. I mailed the letter to Maya's house because it's where Sophie sleeps. I wrote one every month after that. When I dropped them in the blue box on the corner by the laundromat, I said a small sentence under my breath. "May the right eyes see this." I started doing small things that felt like demonstrations. I took watercolor classes at the community center and drank weak coffee and made clumsy blue mountains that looked exactly like I felt, trying hard, low on precision, high on effort. I volunteered at the shelter on Thursdays and read intake forms out loud for women whose hands shook. I alphabetized the pantry like a prayer. I took walks with Joyce in the mornings before the heat turned the air into old soup. We pointed out bougainvillea that looked like it was setting itself on fire for the pleasure of it, and houses whose paint colors were mistakes no one had the heart to fix. In July, I cleaned out Thomas's closet. I took the envelope basket to the table and sorted receipts into piles. I cried when I found his writing on an old grocery list: black beans, bananas, blue cheese. Like someone else was still in the house asking me to buy the alphabet. At the bottom of a shoebox, I found a certificate for a certificate of deposit at Valley Cooperative, 10 years old, matured 6 months ago, never cashed. $12,000 I had lost track of, sitting there like a small apology from the universe. I took it to Mr. Alvarez. He congratulated me like I'd had a grandchild. He set it up again with my name alone, flags intact. I told him about the notary, and he nodded and printed another copy of the "Do Not Complete" sign, as if words on paper could hold back a tide. Sometimes they can.
Maya kept trying to force the world to be shaped like her need. She showed up at my door on a Saturday with Sophie at her side and rang the bell 4 times in a row. When I peeked through the glass, she held up the girl's hand like a raffle prize. "She misses you," she said through the door. "She made you a drawing." I opened the door halfway. Sophie didn't say anything. She looked at my yard and then at me and then at Maya and then at the concrete. The drawing, when she handed it over, was a picture of a house. It had 3 people inside, 2 big, 1 small. The big people had their hands out. The small person had a heart drawn where a pocket should be. I thanked her and told her the rosemary was hers if she wanted a sprig. Maya rolled her eyes and hissed, "We can't even come inside now?" Like she hadn't tried to take my front door by paperwork. "You can visit the yard any time," I said. And we drew hopscotch squares and jumped them while Maya watched with her coffee, the lid on too tight, her mouth tighter. In August, Priya called. "This is unusual," she said. "I don't make follow-up calls, but I wanted you to know your daughter tried to schedule a closing at another office. They used a cropped photo of your ID. The office flagged it and called me. We shared our record. It was denied." "Thank you," I said, "for remembering me." "My grandmother raised me," she said. "I know what this looks like." "Does it always look like this?" I asked. "Tidy rooms where bad things happen and nobody knows?" "Often," she said. "Not always. Sometimes the rooms are messy." We both laughed, the way you laugh when something hurts and laughing lets air in. After that, Maya's messages moved from anger to silence. Silence sounds like safety in the morning and dread late at night. When I couldn't sleep, I sorted the pantry again. I wrote an extra letter to Sophie describing the way rain smells on hot concrete. I wrote about rosemary and alphabetizing. I wrote about how I met Thomas in the library on a Tuesday when he came in to ask where the biographies were and then asked where I got my shoes. I left out the part about how he died because I wanted one letter to be only beginnings. In the fall, the shelter asked if I would teach a short workshop on keeping a paper trail. Simple things like a notebook for calls, printed copies of emails, dates in the margin. 12 women showed up and sat with their notebooks like armor. "Systems catch people before they fall through cracks," I said, because librarians say things like that when no one asked them to. Around the circle, women nodded. Later, a young woman with the baby asleep on her shoulder told me she had started writing down the sentences her boyfriend used when he wanted something she didn't want to give. "He says I'm crazy when I read them back to him, but seeing them on paper, I'm not crazy. They're just sentences." Winter made Phoenix into a place you can breathe. I sold the ranch house in the spring, not because Maya told me to, because every window was a photograph I couldn't stop looking at, and it was time to give the pictures back to the past. I bought a small place across town with a yard the size of a blanket. The mailbox looks like it's telling secrets to the neighbor's mailbox. I planted rosemary next to the walkway and basil next to the hose spigot and a bougainvillea that refuses to be good. I changed the locks. I didn't give Maya a key. I mailed Sophie letters from the new address because I liked the idea that words could map a life. When Maya found out, she found out because she still had a way of knowing where I was, even when I didn't tell her. She called and said, "You left the house Dad died in? That's disgusting." I said, "He died, the house didn't," and hung up, then cried on the kitchen floor because some sentences don't feel like victories, even when they are. Adult Protective Services came to my door one Wednesday with professional faces and clipboards. "We received a report," the woman said, eyes gentle with practice. "Concerns about your ability to manage finances. May we come in?" I made coffee and offered it like a normal person does, in a normal kitchen, on a normal day when the state visits. I answered questions, I showed them folders, I gave them Mr. Alvarez's number. They left with the brochure I didn't need, and apologies I did.
Later, the woman called me from her car. She said, "I'm sorry, we have to follow up. Your daughter sounded concerned."
"She is concerned," I said, "just not about my safety." Spring turned into the kind of heat that makes the sidewalk smell like ovens left on. I planned a trip. Not to Europe, I'm not that brave yet, to Flagstaff and then west. I wanted pine and then water. I wanted the sound a train makes sitting at a station, waiting for permission. When Maya found out, she finds things out like water finds its level, she called to tell me old people fall on vacation. "So do young people," I said, "but they don't stop walking." She hung up on that sentence like she was slamming a door. On a Sunday afternoon, a girl knocked on my door, lankier than before, hair pulled back in a braid that made me think of processions. Sophie stood on my porch wearing a navy t-shirt with a small ice cream cone on the pocket. "Can I come in?" she asked, like we had a schedule. "Does your mother know you're here?" I asked. "No," she said, bold. "I told her I was going to Macy's with Lila. Lila knows this is the mission." She sat on my couch like it had always been waiting for her. She took a stack of pink envelopes, my handwriting on all of them. She said, "Mom kept them in a shoebox in her closet. Sometimes she read them and cried. I thought maybe you stopped writing, but you didn't." "I didn't," I said. "I wasn't sure if they got to you." "Some did," she said. "Some didn't. I like the ones about Rosemary." We made cookies. The first tray burned because we were laughing at how the raw dough sticks to your fingers like secrets and then melts into something you can't put back the way it was. We ate the second tray too fast and didn't care. In the yard, she showed me her cartwheel. Taller, steadier, arms straight, face serious until she landed and remembered to smile. "Your mom says you don't love us. She says you love your money more." Your mom is scared. When people are scared, they say things that help them feel safe. I love you like weather loves the sky, without asking the sky to change to prove anything. "That's weird," she said, but she smiled. "Do you love me because I send money or because I'm your grandma?" I asked. She made a face like I'd asked her if she loved pizza because it's round. "Because you're my grandma." "Then that's how I love you back," I said. She looked at the basil and the rosemary and at her shoes. "Mom says grown-ups do what they have to do." "They do," I said. "Sometimes what they have to do is stop doing what everyone else told them to." "When I'm 18, she said quietly, like it was a plan she had written on a slip of paper and hidden under her pillow, "I'm going to come visit whenever I want. I'll be here, or I'll be somewhere with water the color of forgiveness. Either way, I'll send you a map." After she left, I wrote a letter that night and tucked it into the mailbox without checking the street. "Today you came to my house by yourself. You were brave in a way I am still learning. I will tell you the truth as gently as I can. Love is not a ledger. It is a place to sit down." A year later, on the train to the coast, I sat with a notebook and watched desert turn to not desert. There were men in baseball caps, a woman with a pink suitcase and a nervous smile, a couple in their 70s arguing about crossword clues like the answers would save them. The train stopped in a town where the gulls acted like they owned the roofs. I sat on a bench and let the wind make a mess of my hair. Coffee tasted like college tuition. I watched a boy run with a kite, the string a boundary that didn't ruin his joy, but made it possible. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from a number I didn't know. "Miss Brooks, this is Priya. I moved offices. I think about you sometimes. I want you to know I read your note. I won't forget what it taught me."
I smiled so hard my face felt like it might crack in a way that makes more room for light. I opened my notebook and wrote, "Today I did not need a reason to exist that fit on a line where someone else wanted my signature. Today no one used the word asset and meant me. Today my name is mine." Back in Phoenix, Joyce and I took early walks, and she told me neighborhood gossip like it was church. The boy on the corner got into community college. The woman with the tiny dog got engaged. The house with the peeling turquoise shutters finally picked a new color and then changed its mind and picked it again. At the shelter, a woman named Anna learned to make a budget that had more hope than zeros. At Watercolor, a man named Marvin, who had hands that shook, painted a mountain so faithful I wanted to step inside it and live there. Every now and then, a call would come. Derek, in a voice that had been dipped in sweetness and hung to dry. "We're ready to be a family again when you're ready to be reasonable." I used one of Sandra's sentences and said, "We can try again tomorrow," and then did not schedule tomorrow. Maya texted late on a Tuesday, "Mom, do you remember the time you left me at the ice rink?" I wrote back, "You were with Coach Denise and I was in the lobby." She wrote, "That's not how I remember it." I wrote, "Memory is not a courtroom." She didn't write back. When I turned 72, Joyce put a candle in a muffin and sang at my kitchen table. It was the worst singing I've ever heard. And the best. The cards I received were from people I met after I said no at a table that smelled like toner. I put them on the bookshelf next to the framed photo of Thomas holding a trout and looking at me like the fish was funny and I was the joke he loved. One afternoon, while I was pulling weeds that were really green things pretending to be other green things, a police car rolled up and a young officer stepped out and took off his hat. "Ma'am," he said, polite, "we got a report of a welfare concern." I invited him into the yard and offered him water and pointed to my rosemary and said, "Do I look like I need help?" He smiled and said, "Ma'am, everyone looks like they need help." And I liked him for that. He left after he saw the folders by the door with labels written in neat blocks and after I showed him the list on the fridge. Doctor, neighbor, credit union, support group. He said, "My grandma could use a list like that." I said, "Tell her to call me. I have extra magnets." Another letter came back that month, stamped in purple, undeliverable. I picked at the corner of the sticker and thought about all the things that never arrive where they're supposed to. I wrote another and sent it to Leela's house because Sophie said Leela approved missions. The next time I saw Sophie, she had the letter folded into a tiny square inside her shoe. She said, "Mom reads my text. She hasn't read my shoes." I learned to cook for one without feeling like a punishment. I learned to pick clothes for the color and not the price. I learned to say, "Let me call you back," and then not do it if my stomach felt like a fist. I learned that other people's emergencies rarely are, and if they are, they can call 911 like I can. I had a conversation with a lawyer from Legal Aid after one of Sandra's meetings. We sat in a room with buzzing lights and talked about paperwork that protects you without protecting everyone else from their consequences. She drew a little diagram on a napkin showing a trust that had my name at the top and no dotted lines leading to anyone who had not earned dotted lines. I took the napkin home and put it in a real folder later. I like napkin plans that become paper plans. Maya started a small business selling candles that smell like things you want to remember. Baked bread, mountain rain, new tires. She sent me a link to her site with a comment, "Feel free to support your granddaughter's mother." I bought a candle named Library in winter. It smelled like dry paper and hot dust, and something that might be cinnamon if cinnamon had a job. I burned it one night while I read a book about a woman who leaves a country for a different country and learns that she is the country she was trying to find. There are days I feel mean. That's what I call it, though Sandra would choose a different word.
On those days, the word no tastes like metal, and I want to scrape it off my tongue and say yes just to be sweet. On those days, I add an extra dash of clear sentences to the soup and call Joyce and say, "Tell me something small and stupid and good." She always has something. A cat that looks like a peeled potato, a neighbor who insists on mowing in straight lines and then ruins it by dancing in the middle of the yard when he thinks nobody's watching. We laugh, and the mean feeling goes quiet until it has to start over. Once in a grocery store aisle, I turned the corner and nearly walked into Derek. He was pushing a cart full of things that come from boxes. He saw me and smiled, like we were two polite people who met at a wedding. "We should talk," he said. "No," I said.
"You can't keep this up forever," he said, and he met my boundaries. "Watch me," I said. I put a bundle of carrots into my cart like I had practiced the gesture, which I had. That same week, a little boy at the shelter asked if my hair used to be brown. "It did," I said. "It was a good brown. I miss it sometimes." He nodded, like I had told him something useful, and went back to coloring a picture of a house with a door that looked like a mouth. When the heat moved away again, Sophie came over with a new braid that made her look like an athlete. She brought a book she loved and made me read her favorite paragraph twice. "I like this part because she doesn't ask permission," she said. And then we looked at each other and tried not to make the obvious joke. We failed. We laughed hard enough the rosemary shook. She asked if I could come to her school recital. I asked if her mother would want that. "No," she said, "but my music teacher would." I went and sat in the back. I clapped when everyone clapped. I left before the lights came up. That night I got a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for pretending to be a ghost." The next day, I got a message from Maya. "You lurked." I didn't respond. Sometimes silence is the only sentence that lands where you mean to send it. One evening, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. An older woman's voice said, "You don't know me. My name is Mrs. Porter. I'm Derek's mother." I sat down on the kitchen floor because the chair felt suddenly complicated. "He talked about you," she said. "He talks about the money he could have had. I am sorry for the boy I raised." "You raised a man," I said. "I raised a man who learned to ask for more than he was owed," she said. "I think he thinks that's ambition." "I used to call that love," I said. "I called it survival," she said. "I was wrong." We didn't speak again. I wrote her name on a piece of paper and slid it into a folder called Strange Kindness. When I turned 73, Joyce and I drove to Sedona in her little car that sounds like a metal lunchbox. We watched the rocks pretend to glow from inside. We pointed at clouds like they were family we could name. On the way back, we stopped at a diner where the coffee was bad, and the pie was proof there's a god of crust. A couple in the booth behind us argued about the price of tomatoes, like tomatoes had insulted their mothers. I took a picture of the salt shaker because it looked brave and ordinary. After all that, after years of saying no and yes to different things, after trains and letters and rosemary and support groups and security guards and small rooms with plants that forget to drink, a piece of mail arrived addressed to me and forwarded twice. It was a statement from an old brokerage account I thought I had closed when Thomas was first sick. $192.17 in a money market fund, the kind of amount that is almost a joke. I drove to the office. The young man behind the counter wore a tie that tried too hard. He asked for my ID and then asked for a second form, and I laughed. A nice laugh, because I like when systems work even when they don't need to. He redeemed the amount. "Do you want this mailed or direct deposit?" he asked. "Cash,"
I said. And then I bought a set of watercolor brushes that didn't shed, and a candle called Pine at Night, and a slice of cake bigger than it needed to be. I brought the brushes home and opened the window and painted a plant that didn't forget to drink.
On a Thursday in room C at the community center, Sandra wrote on the board, "We are not here to win. We are here to live." I went home and wrote it in my notebook, and then on a sticky note, and then on the inside of my wrist in ink that washed off in the shower. Later, Maya called and left a voicemail in a voice that sounded like the weather when you can't tell if it's going to rain. "Mom," she said, "are you still mad?" "I am not mad," I wanted to say. "I am done. I am here. I am carrying my own name." I didn't call back. I made tea and sat on the step and watched my own yard unravel into evening. A boy rode by on a skateboard like the ground had finally agreed to be smooth. The basil smelt like the color green. The bougainvillea behaved badly and no one punished it. A plane scratched its line across the sky like a sentence finally landing at its period. People think you stop loving someone when you stop giving them what they demand. That isn't how it works. Love is shaped like a room with open windows. You could invite people to come in. You can set out chairs and pour water and listen while they talk. You can say, "This is my house," and you can say, "Please leave," and you can say, "I will be here when you learn to knock without breaking the door." You can love and protect yourself at the same time. It took me a lifetime to learn it. It took a note on a card and an escrow officer with a steady face to make me act like I knew it. Sometimes I dream about a room that smells like toner and lemon cleaner. In the dream, the plant remembers to drink. Priya is there, Dana is there, Mr. Alvarez is on the speakerphone. My husband is in the corner, smiling at me like the fish is funny. Maya is small and asleep on my lap. Derek doesn't exist. I write "help" on the back of my library card and then flip it over and write my own name. The letters are square and solid. I put the card on the table between me and the future and I wait. The future reads it. The future nods. I wake up and make coffee. I water the rosemary. I check the mail. I write a letter and fold it twice and put it inside an envelope that knows its way. I put on my shoes and walk, my knees complaining like honest friends. I pass the house with the shutters that couldn't decide who they wanted to be. I pass Joyce and she waves with both hands like she is signaling a boat. I pass the girl in a braid who hurries by and then turns around and gives me a quick hug before turning back again, running toward a life that will include me at the right distances. On my kitchen counter, the notebook lies open to a page with 3 sentences I keep practicing until they become the way I breathe. I will not sign to be loved. I will not sign to be safe. I will not sign to make someone else's fear quieter than my own. I read them out loud like a recipe. Then I put on my hat and step outside where the air already knows my name.